All right, and we're back. Apologies for the technical difficulties. I think we cut off right around the same point where Stacy was talking a little bit about her office hours and where people can find content for help. Stacy, you want to just kind of pick it up where you left off there, and we'll keep rolling.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So, in summary, my team is always looking to hear feedback from our publishers and users alike. And these office hours are just one channel to do so. We're really excited to start doing these quarterly with the News Lab. Previously, John was gracious enough to help us out host them on the Webmaster channel. But we want to just reach out as many ways as possible. And you can reach out to us as well through the Google News Help Forum. I think you might have seen a snapshot when I was talking about our product. I would just Google News Help Forum, and that's where I can answer your questions directly, as well as publishers and experts from around the world who often have the exact same questions that you do. Additionally, we have our Google News Help Center, and that is a very, very comprehensive resource that I guarantee will likely have the answer to your question in numerous pages of help content. That is, I don't remember the link off the top of my head, but you can Google the Google News Help Center. And also in the top right-hand corner, there's a Contact Us button. So you can always email us and get a hold of us. And also, you will see us around at a lot of different industry events. So be sure to stop by and say hi. As I mentioned, a lot of us will be at ONA 2015 in Los Angeles, so stop by our booth and say hi. We're always looking to hear from you. We open up our campus for a lot of different events, so our doors are pretty much always open any time of the day.
That's great. And Stacy, I just wanted to also go back to Mark's question, just in case we didn't get a chance to actually answer that before the last Hangout closed. Mark Dando was asking, what are the most important items for building trust in a story? Is it news brand or social recommendations? And maybe tied to that would be the question of, what kind of signals are we looking for quality around inclusion in Google News?
Great. Thanks, Mark, for asking that question. It's one we get a lot. So it sounds like a two-part question. One is, how are sites included in Google News? We have an incredibly large index of news sites, over 70,000 publishers from around the world. And they're big, they're small, they're blogs, they're of all sizes. The one commonality that all of them have is that they produce really high-quality original content. That is the biggest requirement that we have. And if you follow that, we would love to have your site in the Google News Index. Now, when we start looking at the article level, when people ask, how do I get my article to rank higher in Google News? There is no one magic bullet because there are so many factors that we consider, that the Google News bot considers when ranking articles. And Mark, some of the factors that you mentioned, brand, social media signals, all get factored into that. So the biggest takeaway I can say is just do good journalism and do the best practices and tips that you're already doing in terms of distributing your article across social media channels, get those referral links, get those likes across Facebook, Twitter, Google+, all of those, and that is going to be the most natural way that your articles are going to start appearing more frequently across Google News properties.
And Stacy, while we're talking about Google News and Newsstand, what are some common questions that you typically get, either in your office hours or just when you're talking to people in person? Maybe like a couple quick ones there.
Sure. A lot of times publishers will write into us and ask, I can't see my articles. Why are all of my articles missing? So it's a very broad question, and there's a lot of things essentially that can go wrong from the point that you push publish to the time that the article is indexed in Google News. And I say wrong because we would love for your articles to show up. For us, it is considered an error if we're not indexing your content. So there's a lot of technical issues that can happen. We launched this new tool called the Google News Publisher Center, so you can tell us where your content lives on your website. So I highly recommend you to log into your account, because one of the biggest reasons is you will not list, or we will not have the news sections correctly listed in your Google News Publisher Center account, and that is the prime reason why we can't find your content. So it's making sure that your account is in order, essentially. A lot of times publishers write in asking about a specific article that is not news. Google News only allows news content in our index. So how-to articles, job postings, we exclude that because users are expecting when they go to Google News to see really high quality original news content. So there are technical reasons your content could not be included and also quality reasons. And I do my best to answer these questions live on air, but sometimes it's very difficult because it is specific to your site and it's a very specific article URL. And I can't quite troubleshoot on air, but always happy for you to reach out to me by email or other channels, and I can follow up and give you the answer that is hopefully resolvable.
That's great. Fantastic. And I think this would probably be a good segue to talk about John and what office hours he works on. John, tell us, first of all, where are you right now? And tell us a little bit about the office hours that you typically do.
I'm in Switzerland, so I'm not in Mountain View, not in California. My team works out of the Zurich office from Google Switzerland, and we essentially try to connect normal webmasters, publishers, people who create content online with the search engineers. So we work on the web search side of Google. So all of the processes and steps that are necessary from first finding content on a website to crawling and indexing that content, and then taking that content and showing it in search are things that we do. We don't specifically work with news sites, but of course news sites also have content that shows up in normal web search as well. We work together with a fairly cross-functional team that's based in Dublin. They also have people in Tokyo, Indonesia, Mountain View as well, that try to handle this kind of webmaster support on an international level across multiple languages. Together with them, we've done, I don't know, several hundreds of office hour hangouts, a lot of them in English, a lot of them general open office hours hangouts, but also a lot of hangouts in different languages, be that German, Russian, Japanese, Chinese even, where anyone who works on a website, who creates content online, can essentially come to us, ask us questions live, and we'll try to solve those questions for them or point them at ways where they can solve the problem themselves. Yep.
That's great. And John, what kind of questions do you typically get in these sessions, and what kind of publishers do you typically see coming to these types of events?
We see big publishers, small publishers, essentially everything kind of in between as well. A lot of the questions we get are more on a technical level. So how do I set up my site for working internationally? How do I solve specific kind of crawl errors? What's the best practice for paginated content? So the kind of questions that anyone might run across where they have a website already, they know how to get stuff online, they have great content, but they're not sure how to do this one specific thing. And we'll help to try to guide them to do that in the proper way. On the one hand, so that it works well for users, but on the other hand, so that it also works well for search, so that we can pick up that content and we can send them even more traffic.
And what kind of questions would you typically get, or do you get like maybe the same question like over and over again that we could kind of address here before people get into those types of office hours?
We get all kinds of questions. So I've been going through the last couple office hours to kind of see what kind of questions are coming up. If we can just like combine them all and do one blog post, we'll never have to do office hours again. But it doesn't work that way. So everyone has slightly different questions. Everyone has a slightly different take on things, and there's no one answer that fits all sides. So, for example, what we'll sometimes see is that someone has maybe an e-commerce site or a news site, and they have different categories of products and different products, but they also have different attributes for these individual products. So you could imagine a shoe store online that has, for each shoe model, maybe different colors, maybe different sizes. And one question that'll come up is, should I make separate pages for these individual pieces of content? And from our point of view, this is something that really depends on the website itself. So it's not something where we can give them a definitive answer and say, yes or no, you should do it like this. But rather, if your site is like this, if your content is like this, maybe you should do it this way. If your site is differently, maybe you should do it a different way. So kind of bringing that out in the open, I found works really well in the office hours, where you can bring a little bit more context into an answer. than if you were to like just do that on Twitter and it's like, hey, should I do this? And you basically only have a chance to say yes or no, when actually there's a lot of kind of room in between to give a more nuanced answer that works well for that specific site.
And as far as like people that are managing sites, are these only really, really big sites? Are these only like top publishers? Are these only, you know, super experts? Or is it kind of a spectrum? Like what type of person could be expected that you'd find in one of these events?
We have pretty much everything. So we'll sometimes have people from really large sites where when they ask us questions, they're kind of general. So it's not that you have to come to the Hangout and say, I work for Microsoft and I have this embarrassing problem, but rather you're just Joe or whoever that happens to be, and it's like you have this general problem, what should you do? And some of them are also SEOs or general marketing agencies that work with a number of different websites, but some of them are also just small businesses that have one website and they have kind of questions about what they should be doing best to make their site more visible in search so that we can send them more traffic.
That's great. And just as a reminder, if people wanted to find more information about either your office hours or where to find more information about taking care of the websites, what are a couple good links for them to follow?
A good place to go is the Google Webmaster Central page, where you can just search for Google Webmaster Central and you'll land there directly. From there, you'll have links to our Google Plus page, where all of the events are also listed, as well as our help forums, where we have fantastic top contributors who also have seen pretty much every question there is out there and can probably help with most of these as well. So from there, you can kind of spread out and look at the various products. You can also make it over to Search Console, which is the old Webmaster Tools, which is one thing I really recommend anyone who makes a website that wants to put it into search, takes a look, verifies their site, make sure that they've kind of gone through that as well.
That's great. And for anybody that's interested, obviously you can check out I'm sorry, where do you post information about your events? Is it on your Google Plus page? Or where else can we find information?
Yeah, that's on the Google Webmaster Central Google Plus page. What generally happens is we have a lot of people who want to join these Hangouts, so they fill out very quickly. There's lots for 10 people that are live, but if you're new and you haven't been to these Hangouts before, you can always leave a comment in the event, and I'll add you a couple minutes before.
That's great, and obviously we'll be also sharing content or sharing links to your office hours, so as new information comes up, you can also check us out on our Google Plus page and on our Twitter page. We'll be promoting that quite a bit, and John, we hope to see you sometime again in the near future.
Great, thanks.
Have a great evening. Thank you. Dan Russell, I got a question for you. A lot of us have been mentioning ways to search for or find different links. Often, a lot of times, the easiest way to find a product or a link that we're talking about is sometimes just to search for it. Do you have some really basic search tips for people that are interested in finding, let's say, Stacy's office hours or information about getting into the news or newsstand program?
So, a couple of general search tips, because the examples you gave are pretty varied. So a couple obvious things. Try to use the words that you think the authors of the article or the office hour announcement or whatever would use. One of the things I see a lot of people doing a lot is that they will use their words, and sometimes they'll use these very highfalutin terms. So, for example, when you're searching for someone who's an MD who knows about, for example, how to fix broken arms, you'll find somebody searching for Dr. Fracturated Arm. That's a terrible search. I mean, fracturated isn't a word to begin with, and so you're guessing a word. So try to look for words that are common words that are probably in the description of the page or someone's text, the way they write. So try to figure out how would someone write it the way you think they would write it, not the way you write it. So that's an important thing. So that's one thing. Another thing would be sometimes, when you're looking at a particular, you want to find a particular kind of thing in a particular location. The site operator is your friend. So if you know, for example, that there's a faculty member, suppose you're looking for Stacy Chan, the faculty member at American University, do a site restriction on the American University EDU site. So you would look, I don't know what it is, but let's say it's AU. you would say site:/au.edu, Stacy Chan. And that will separate out that Stacy Chan who teaches there from our Stacy Chan who works here. So sometimes scoping your search by using site will be an incredibly useful thing to do. And lastly, I think choosing terms that are on topic. One thing that people do a lot that I see is they will include in their search things like Dan Russell, who works at Google and is a certain anthropologist, and what they're really looking for at my homepage. Use the word homepage in that search. So keep it focused, stay on topic, and try to use language that you expect to find on a page.
Very cool. All right, so we have one other question, and I'm just going to pivot off and show everybody a few other places that they can find information specifically about NewsLab and the work that we're doing. But before I get to that, I just wanted to address this question that we got through YouTube on one of our videos. And I apologize, Simone, if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. Simone Lackerbauer, I believe. I hope I got that right. She says she has a question about translating the site into multiple languages. You know, is it available in German and French and other things like that? John, you were speaking about specifically about your office hours and how they're actually available in multiple languages. Is that true?
Yes. So I do them in German and English. We have other people who do them in Russian, Japanese, Chinese. So lots of opportunity there. We have a great Help Center article on handling multilingual international content. So I'd recommend checking that out in the Webmaster Help Center. That has links to all kinds of opportunities that you can use to let us know about translated content which you have available in multiple versions, as well as any geo-targeting that you might be doing if you're saying, this part of my site is specific to this individual country, for example.
That's great. And I actually just pulled up a screen share here that everybody should be able to see of our NewsLab site that Daniel Seberg had mentioned earlier, newslab.withgoogle.com or g.co/newslab. And Simone, to answer your question, it is available in multiple languages now. I think when you actually sent that comment, we were just in the process of translating the entire site. It's now available in 19 different languages, so depending on what your native language is, hopefully we've got you covered. And I also just wanted to kind of point out a few different resources. When you first come to this website, g.co/newslab, you'll see up at the top right-hand corner, there's links here to our social media accounts. And this is a really fantastic way to reach us. Our Twitter handle, twitter.com/Google Newslab. My colleague Simon Rogers has been live tweeting this event as we've been talking today, which thank you very much, Simon, for that. But if you ever have questions or comments, definitely think about using Twitter as a way to reach out to us. We know that a lot of journalists are on Twitter, and we want to make sure that we're available to you. We also have our YouTube page. If you go to youtube.com/newslab@Google, you'll see a long list of various videos. Right now we actually have our live stream video that's playing. We also have a breakdown of different types of videos. So NewsLab Presents, we have talks that happen at Google all the time that might be relevant to journalists, so we definitely want to highlight those. The tools and FAQ videos, this is a fantastic resource that if you are just working on a project and you get stuck and it's like, hey, I don't know how to embed a map on my story, or how do I use Google Alerts, for example. All of these videos are relatively short. The idea behind these is to really provide up-to-date information about really regularly asked questions or FAQs that we get from time to time. So if we get a lot of questions around a particular topic, there's a good likelihood that we'll create a video for that. Obviously, our Google Plus page, which you probably have all already found, because if you're watching this Hangout, you probably found our Google Plus page. But if you want to get to that, it's plus Google News Lab. Also posting a lot of good updated information there. For those people who are interested in data or trends, for example, I would also recommend our GitHub page. If you go to googletrends.github.io/data, you will find an amazing resource of data sets that we're providing here for you to use for your news stories. If you ever have any questions about that, you can always reach out to us. Just another quick shout out to Dan Russell's site, powersearchingwithgoogle.com. Definitely worth taking the time for anybody that's interested in search to take the time to go through this class. Also, just a quick shout out to the YouTube team. They also have a resource called the YouTube Creators Academy. So if you are a journalist or a newsroom that's interested in using YouTube as a tool to either research or reach new audiences, I would definitely check out the Creators Academy. You could spend months and months on this site and never run out of things to learn. But if you go to creatorsacademy.withgoogle.com, you'll find that there. And then lastly, one question that we get quite a bit, how do I use Google products in news or in my story? How do I use Google Street View imagery, for example, or Google Earth imagery without getting into trouble from somebody for using it incorrectly? If you go to google.com/permissions, this site will provide you all of the answers that you could ever possibly need to all of your questions about using our products on air or in print or online. But as always, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. We're eager to answer your questions, and as we were talking about earlier, we will be doing these office hours once a month. So next month, coming up, we will be doing another session. This one was particularly about resources and educational opportunities and other office hours where you can find more information. Subsequent office hours will be on specific product areas. So the next one coming up likely will be specifically on search. So Dan Russell, if you're available to come back and help us out and talk a little bit about all of the amazing things we can learn with search, that will be the focus of our upcoming office hours for September. And then following that, we'll probably do ones on Google Maps and News and Newsstand once the quarterly office hours comes up for that, and on and on and on. So we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you for bearing with us with the technical glitch that we had, but we'll be marrying these two office hour videos together into one magnum opus later on. Check out our Google Plus page for a link to that. But in the meantime, thank you very much. Stacy, John, Dan, appreciate you being here today, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Take care.